So the first thing I want to point out is that normally covert narcissists do not want to go to therapy for a long time. Let's say you're in a long-term relationship with someone, and for the majority of the relationship, you probably had no idea that this person had or has potentially a personality disorder. For a long time, you may have sensed something was off, and you may have even searched to find out if there was a disorder that would fit the category of the person you're in a relationship with, but you probably felt like, even though you found some that seemed similar, nothing really matched completely, right? So it's very confusing at that time. You sense something's off. Your inner gut is telling you something is wrong, but if you're living with a covert narcissist, they're telling you that everything is great, and that if you think something's wrong, because they don't, if you think something's wrong, then there must be something wrong with you. So that's a reality that you've been living with for a long time, right? And maybe at that time, in that time of confusion, when you yourself were lost, you may have brought up therapy and the toxic person was against it. But then something happens. What usually happens is the victim of the covert narcissism winds up finding out, stumbling on videos like these that talk about covert malignant narcissism. Maybe they're Googling certain characteristics, and maybe they're looking at blogs, looking at certain things, dynamics that are happening in their life, and suddenly they find this huge community of people that almost sound as if they have been married to the same person. All of a sudden, things start to make sense. And maybe around this time, the victim might even bring this information to the toxic person, thinking that, hey, we have this problem. It might be this disorder that you have. And the thing is, they're bringing that information to their significant other, not to try to shame the person, not to make them feel bad about themselves, but because they think that, wow, maybe there's hope. If there's a name for it, then we can work on it, right? That's the logic of a lot of victims at that stage. Suddenly, the fog that the toxic malignant narcissist has kept you in for a long time is starting to lift in little ways, and they take note. They notice that the fog is lifting, and suddenly they want to go to therapy at that point, especially if you're in the phase where you're trying to prove that they have a problem. That's the moment when they love to go to therapy. There's a few reasons why it's so dangerous, and I'm going to go over a couple of them. The first reason is because of their motive. The victim may want to try to fix the problems, but the covert malignant narcissist only wants to keep the victim in that confused fog-like state where they can't even tell or hold on to their own reality. That's their whole goal. So now, if they know that their victim is learning about identifying manipulative tactics and how to handle them, they need to remove the lens of clarity that their victim is getting. And what a better way to do that than take them to a professional where they can charm that professional so that the professional now tells the victim that maybe it's them, which is secondary abuse. So how they do this is the same way they've been setting up their victim for a long time. They will probably, before a session, they will treat the victim awful. They will verbally, emotionally, psychologically abuse the victim. You will be so devastated and angry and longing for this session so you can pour out what's going on. However, at the same time that they've been provoking you, they've also been provoking you to respond very aggressively. So what will happen is you will be expecting them to treat you the way they treat you behind closed doors, right? You've been fighting for days, maybe weeks prior to a session, and you get there and you're a mess. Your anxiety is high, your fight or flight has been kicked on for so long that any little thing is going to set it off. So they will say a lie, they will say a half-truth about how you have reacted to the abuse. Now you know the truth, and their lie to this person really gets under your skin, so you explode. and the toxic person doesn't treat you the way they normally do. Now they're like, I don't see therapist so-and-so, I don't understand why he or she is so angry all the time. I recognize that we both have things we need to work on, but it's really difficult when he or she is explosive like this. And now they're further lying, right? They're manipulating right in front of you, and what does that do to someone that hasn't completely healed? Well, that only provokes more anger, frustration, and anxiety. So now, without realizing it, you are actually acting exactly how they want. They're not looking to find a solution to the marital problems. No, they like things just as they are. They're not looking to make amends. They're not looking to reconcile your differences, because to them, there's no need for reconciliation. As long as you continue to carry the negativity and they get to charm everybody, they're happy. They've been using you to regulate themselves, so they don't want anything to change. So they use the session to further invalidate you, because now you're getting invalidated by the narcissist. You're also getting invalidated by the therapist or counselor, and then oftentimes you wind up getting invalidated by your own family members, because again, you don't realize that they have been setting you up to look like the problem for a long time. That's why I say in the title of this video, beware. Because if you are further invalidated, if you wind up with secondary abuse by a therapist, it has the potential to push people over the edge, in the sense that they feel like there is nothing they can do. There is no hope for them. There is nothing. No one will ever believe them. Some individuals wind up actually really believing that they have lost their minds. They feel crazy. Nobody believes them. Okay, so that's one reason why it's so dangerous. The second reason it's so dangerous is because they know how to manipulate. One thing we have to recognize with malignant narcissists, especially covert narcissists, is their ability to charm. They can come across so charming, and again, the way they treat you in public with this therapist, or even behind your back when they're talking to the therapist, is very different than you expect how they're talking about you. If they're telling you you're the worst husband in the world, you're an awful person, you're this, you're that, they don't go to the therapist saying that. They go to the therapist saying, I love my spouse. I think he or she is amazing. You know, I want this relationship to work. That's why I'm here. I care so much about it, even though my significant other is bashing my name, even though they're talking bad about me. I love him or her. So what happens in the mind of the therapist when they go to talk to you and you share all the abuse that you're enduring? Instead of seeing the abuse, the therapist reflects on what the other person said, and they start thinking, oh, this is exactly what the other person said he or she was going to do, bash them and talk negatively. The other person didn't talk negatively. They spoke so highly of their spouse. This is the person that must have a problem, the one that's talking negatively. When the truth is that you're simply the one that's telling the truth, okay? When that happens and you wind up having a counselor or a therapist then turn the tables and make it all about how you're the problem, the toxic person then uses that information with your friends, with your family members, with your children, with your parents, about how the therapist even recognizes that there's something wrong with you and further isolates you from anyone that could possibly help. That's the second reason why it's dangerous. The last reason is for those moments when the narcissist realizes that other people are starting to believe you. Maybe they're slipping now because you've changed with your knowledge, with your new knowledge that you're learning from YouTube, from videos, from face-to-face coaching with individuals. You're now changing. And what happens is, since they use you to regulate themselves, as you get healthier, they're unhealthiness starts to become more apparent. They start realizing that people that used to view you negatively aren't viewing you negatively anymore. People are starting to maybe have like a question mark over their heads instead of fully accepting everything the malignant narcissist has been saying. And they're like, what's going on? Like, how am I losing my support, right? Or my side. People aren't taking my side anymore. So they go to therapy to find out. And so what happens is they become better narcissists because of therapy. For example, I knew one couple where he would verbally abuse at the top of his lungs, like screaming, yelling, practically foaming at the mouth. And when he was told through counseling that, that was unacceptable behavior, there was no excuse. No matter how much he tried to twist and turn it, that behavior was obvious that it was wrong and it was pointed out to him. Now, they can't stand being at fault of anything. So what did he do? Did he stop the abuse? No. He simply hid it better by no longer raising his voice to that degree. If you're thinking, well, then he got better. No, he didn't get better. He kept saying the same things. He kept with the same insults, the same derogatory, humiliating comments. He simply said them at a calmer tone of voice. That didn't make it less abusive. That made the abuse more hidden. So that's what we mean when we say therapy makes narcissists better narcissists. They start finding the ways that their abuse can be pointed out, and rather than looking at it and saying, oh, that's abusive, I should change, what they do is, in their minds, it's like, okay, that's abusive, I'm getting caught. What do I have to do to not get caught? That's their logic. That's their thinking. I can't tell anyone what to do. Everyone has to make their own choices, their own decisions, and be responsible for the choices that they make. I do encourage people to get help, whether it's with a therapist, a counselor, or a coach. But I encourage you to get that help by yourself.